Welcome back to News Channel 9 at 6. This week, the city of Chattanooga became a distilling town for the first time in 100 years as Chattanooga history celebrated the grand opening of the Tennessee Stillhouse.
But before the crowd stepped inside, News Channel 9's Latricia Thomas tagged along with the new head distiller as liquid history was made. Latricia.
Well, we saw the first drops of whiskey created in Chattanooga in 100 years come out of the still on Market Street as an old tradition becomes new again in a town ready to say cheers.
This feels very, very right. It feels like the right place in Chattanooga, the right place in the community. It feels like the right size. We have the right team.
For 100 years, the distilling roots of Chattanooga have run dry.
It's one of the largest distilling towns in America. And when that was discovered, we did not understand why distilling was not currently happening in the city.
Until this week, when Chattanooga Whiskey was reborn as a true local liquor.
The reason that we say whiskey to the people is it was the people showing up and showing their support and saying that they want whiskey to come back in Chattanooga that really made that happen.
The public push that helped change a local law and then a state statute now stands behind the Tennessee Stillhouse and the history-making spirit taking shape inside.
We're figuring it out and every time getting a little bit better.
Head Distiller Grant McCracken is perfecting the new recipe that takes just under a week to create.
We grind up the grain, introduce it with hot water, and the purpose of that is to kind of explode the starches that exist in grain.
Once the temperature is cooled and an enzyme added, the mash is sent to the fermenter.
You've basically gone from probably about 14% sugar down to 0, and you've gone from about 0% alcohol up to 8. So yeast has pretty much just converted all that sugar over to alcohol and other flavor compounds.
After 3 to 5 days, it's time for the still to make the most of the alcoholic content.
You heat it up, the first thing that starts to boil and vaporize is the alcohol.
As the vapor rises up the column, it meets cooler temperatures and condenses back to a liquid, making this historic moment possible.
Official spirit made in Chattanooga in 100 years.
What comes out as white whiskey will be available to taste in a few months' time, but still needs 2 to 3 years in a barrel before it's ready for the bottle.
All that new wood and that new char, it just has a larger impact and colors the product and makes it more caramel and more vanilla faster.
The whiskey that currently carries the Chattanooga label has been aging in Indiana for years, but with the opening of the Stillhouse is now bottled here in the scenic city.
Now it says bottled by Tennessee Stillhouse, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
And instead of trying to match the current flavor of the 1816 cask, the new blend will take on a taste all of its own.
Pave a new path with a new whiskey.
A path that hasn't been easy to navigate.
Well, our 3 years, we've spent, introducing whiskey for the first time into a great and growing community in Tennessee, which is synonymous with whiskey worldwide, and having to change a 100-year-old law to do that. Whiskey has been brought back to Chattanooga. Cheers.
The Tennessee Stillhouse will be available to rent for events and open 7 days a week for tours and tastings. And because they have a bottling and merchandising permit, the Stillhouse will be the only place you can buy a bottle of whiskey in Chattanooga on a Sunday.